Okay, hello everyone. I just put together a few examples here that hopefully will be very useful to you in your games. Okay, so take a moment and look at this position. I played this a couple of days ago against a 2100 something player. I have the black pieces, and this is a demonstration of a few things, but I mainly did it to show you how to use power moves to lure your opponent into making a mistake. But remember, your moves have to be good, otherwise they should be serving a purpose, a long-term purpose, where you're going to be creating threats as well. And to further whatever plan that you have based on the position, right, on the demands of the position. But notice that white, and you have to know your weaknesses, right? And your pawn weaknesses, your backward pawns. Remember, pawns are the main part of chess, right? The soul of chess. They serve a lot of functions, and disrupting the opponent's pawn structure, then you can attack his weak pawn. So I have a backward pawn here, and my opponent has ganged up on it, as he should, because that's a weakness. You attack weaknesses. You don't attack strengths, because there's nothing there. Your opponent will be able to defend if you have equal forces somewhere. So he has two attackers. I have two defenders. My king and my knight are defending this pawn. And so that in mind, right, I know that he's kind of got me here, right, under the gun. Now, he can remove one of the defenders, right, so that becomes the goal. Your goal is to remove one of the defenders so you can win material. And if he pushes this pawn with check, I take, check, and if I take this, then he gets this, and then both of these pawns are weak. So, and my king's dancing, and I'm dancing to his tune, right, and the whole point of the six power moves is to gain the initiative. The initiative really is the most important thing in chess. That's how most games are won. With that in mind, I push this pawn to keep him from making my king dance, and also it's a reasonable move anyway. It cuts off the escape of the king here. If I move my rook, I'm going forward, right? That's another principle, right? You want to move your men forward into his territory, which reduces their space, their ability to maneuver, right? And then eventually you squeeze them. The squeeze play is probably the number one way that a space advantage is probably the number one way that professional games are won. I'm just throwing that out there, but my guess is that that's true. Time, space, force, pawn structure, those are the primary elements. So anyway, he takes, I take. And now we have 3 pawns against 2, right? So I have a slight edge. Now, here's the thing. Whose move is it? Yeah, it's black to move. What does he do? All right, now, my other weakness, my undefended knight, right? So he attacks my undefended knight. And I saw an interesting film once where they said they were playing chess in prison or something, and they said that the best chess players make you believe that they are dictating play, right? So you look for that. You can look for that. It's an advanced concept. So I know my good opponents are, they see the weaknesses. They understand power moves, and they know that those are opportunities. So I gave him a chance to take advantage of me, to make him think. So I moved my rook here. Now I have an undefended rook here, and this knight is pinned, right? If I move the knight, of course I could move it here and defend my rook, but I'm setting up a little trick, a little trap here for him. So he sees that he can capture this pawn now, because if my knight recaptures, he gets my undefended rook. So it looks like my pieces are compromised. And I wanted him to believe that. And often when you think that you're tricking your opponent, you kind of let your guard down and you stop looking for the threats your opponent can make. unless you're a really good player, because all the really good players know that their opponents are trying to trick them. So now this is still furthering my plan. My eventual goal was to come up here and pin this pawn and then try to work on this pawn with my knight and rook working together, and maybe my king too, because this is his backward pawn, right? That's the name of the game. But I saw an opportunity to trick him. So if he takes this, here's the whole thing. You know, I'm always looking at power moves, as you should be too. I saw that my knight could actually check him here. And the reason that it's kind of, you can miss a move like that because this pawn can capture the knight. So it looks like a bad move. So your mind is already kind of removing that move as a possibility. Now if my rook was here, then I could do that because the pawn would be pinned, right? My rook would be x-raying here. But because I came this way, he kind of just a little mental error here. So here's the whole thing. So he grabs the pawn, yeah, and now I throw in my power move because his rook is undefended, right? You got to look at all the power moves. His rook is undefended as well. So he takes that, and I check him, and I win the rook for the knight. Yeah, I get this, and I think that was game over, right? And he resigns here. So you can start looking for those possibilities, those opportunities in your game, as long as it isn't messing up your longer range plan. And that was, I was going to bring my rook here anyway. I wanted to get it to the 7th rank. It didn't hurt that, and I had an opportunity to trick him. Okay, now let's look at another instructive game, and I'm going to show you a game that Carlsen played that really shows you, it's amazing. I mean, that top grandmasters can also fall prey to simple power move concepts. So let's look at that.